the 18 Strong Podcast, episode number 364 with Mitch Sadowsky from Aretas Performance. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 18 Strong Podcast, where we are here to help you build a stronger game because we know that every golfer deserves to play better longer. In this episode, I've got one of my good friends, Mitch Sadowsky from Aretas Performance, coming on the show. He joined us many moons ago, back in episode number 16 of the 18 Strong Podcast, and we brought him back on because Mitch is one of the top strength coaches in the world of golf. He was down in Florida for a long period of time working with a lot of professional golfers and has now moved back to Wisconsin, where he's still working with golfers, but a lot of other athletes, as well as bridging the gap between physical therapy and general population, that gap where people are finishing up with either their injuries or the rehab and finding a way to get back into their sports, their athletics, or just into their life. In this episode, we talk about a lot of kettlebell strengthening. Mitch is one of the top coaches that I know, and he's an expert in not just strength training and coaching, but in utilizing different tools like kettlebells to help strengthen in a little different way than most think of when they think traditional strength training. And so we talk a lot about different ways to build strength and power and explosiveness. And we even talk about the idea that golf is, yes, it's an explosive sport, but it's also an endurance sport because it takes such a long period of time to play, sometimes over the course of days. And so Mitch has been kicking around some different ways of training for explosive capacity that we go into a lot of detail on. We talk about rucking, we talk about breathing, we talk about a lot of different ways that you can train, whether you're a professional golfer, a collegiate golfer, or just a weekend warrior like most of us, and how that's going to help you improve not just your game, but your overall health. So you're really going to enjoy this episode with Mitch right after this. Our partners over at Linksole have been providing us with the best apparel for both on the course and off the course, from polos to t-shirts like the one I have on right now. Everything that they have is meant to be worn from the golf course to wherever you're going next, whether that be casual, whether that be to the beach. There's all different options over there. So go to 18strong.com/Linksole. You'll get 20% off of anything in your cart over on Linksole's website. So again, 18strong.com/Linksole for our favorite brand of apparel for anything on the golf course and off. Now let's get to this week's interview. Mitch Sadowsky, welcome back to the 18 Strong Podcast.
Thanks, man. It's great to be back on. We were trying to figure out which episode it was. It was 16.
Yeah, number 16. I think that was back in 2015 is when that originally was. And we had started the podcast right at the end of 14. And then you and I got to hang out at the World Golf Fitness Summit in October of that year, out in California, in Carlsbad. And then, it was love ever since.
Yeah, we were roommates.
That's right.
Stayed with, it was us and I think and Clint Howard and Nick Mueller.
And Nick Mueller. Yeah, and Lizzie Pauls was there, and we had the whole crew, man. That was pretty awesome.
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah, for sure.
Long time ago, back when
lots of fish tacos that weekend.
That's right. Best fish tacos over in Carlsbad. That's back when both you and I had dark, luscious beards. Now they're big and white and gray.
Well, it's luscious. It's just a lot whiter.
That's true. Very, very true. So how are things, man? So you're up in more of a cold climate. You were down in Florida when I originally first met you, working down at Lake Nona. Yeah. And now tell everybody where you are and what prompted the move.
Yeah, through a little bit of a circuitous route. We moved from Orlando to South Florida in late 2017. A little bit for my wife's job, but there's some good opportunities down in South Florida for me. Got a chance to work with a lot of really, really close friends of ours. Was at Coastal Performance, now Forefront, with Brendan Hayden, and was working a lot with Dr. James Spencer, Don Stanley, Hugo Botero, just, really, really solid crew of guys down there that we all worked really well together from the med side and performance side, and was able to refer out quite a bit. And then then we started talking about a year ago. So our daughter's 3, our son's a year and a half. And we started talking a couple of years ago about getting our family back up to Wisconsin, where I grew up, where my parents are, my sisters. And it just worked out. So actually through Jason Glass, I met a couple of guys who went through his mentorship, and I met Nate and Scott probably around 2016, 17 down in Orlando. And, Nate's the first guy that I see coming into the hotel, and he's got a Milwaukee shirt on, and, Wisconsin people are like magnets to each other. Yeah. So then, hey, where'd you get that shirt? He's like, I grew up there. So he and I started talking. We both have the same volleyball background, the same, volleyball community in Milwaukee where we grew up. And he was a DPT, he owned his own clinic. And, from the performance side, I said, dude, I don't need a good reason to come up home. So let's see what we can work on. And I was able to come up, visit a couple of times, do some performance clinics at their facility. And then about 2 years ago, we started talking and said, hey, what are you doing for your performance program as your patients are moving on to PT? He said, we don't have anyone. I said, what would it look like if that was me? And he said, well, let's talk. And last November, we were out visiting family, and it just got accelerated. I looked at my wife. I said, hey, it's time to get the kids back home. So I saw Nate. Actually, that night we were at Buckstain with some other friends, and I met Nate at halftime. I said, all right, dude, let's do this. Let's build something really, really big and that fits our visions and our dreams. And we started moving towards it. And January, not January, I think July 12th, 14th, something like that. The movers came, packed our stuff up. We packed everything up in cars and drove on up. And so a little shorter background. So Nate opened up his own. He was with Team Rehabilitation, and he and another guy split off from that company to form Aretas Physical Therapy. We have 2 locations. And so we opened Aretas Performance in July, and we've been going since.
Awesome. So is Aretas Performance, obviously you worked a ton with golfers. I assume a lot of volleyball players too. Are you working with those 2 specifically, or a little bit of all the athletes around?
A little bit of everybody. Right now it's sliding people over from PT, whether they're just Gen Pop, to firefighters, tactical populations. I do have a lot of golfers. We've got a lot of high school baseball players, a lot of high school athletes that are coming off PT. So right now we've got a little bit of everybody, and we'll be probably doing a little bit more specialization in golf as the performance side continues to grow. And I would say probably 60 to 70% of my time is continuing to develop our golf performance platform. But right now we're making sure everybody gets taken care of.
I love it. I've always thought that there was a missing piece in the model of the medical system of, going from a physical therapy setting to then just going back out to real life, right? Or to real sport, and not having that crossover. And it seems like obviously it's more prominent now than it was, 10, 15, 20 years ago when you and I kind of got into this field. But I still feel like there's a lot of that missing, or it's not something that's been perfected. So it's cool to see that you guys are working so closely together. Are there physicians that you guys work with pretty closely too, that are kind of steady referrals to you guys?
Yeah, we've got a number of orthopedic surgeons that we work with. We've got, I would say mostly down there, a couple other docs from outside that realm that we're working with that kind of believe in the not everybody needs therapy, but everybody needs strength. That type of philosophy that they can say, well, okay, so if your knee is bothering you or whatever, you can go to Aretas, but we really want them to understand that we follow the reset, reinforce, reload model through FMS, so that once people start loading and creating a little bit more competency in whatever movement pattern we're trying to fix, that they can slide fairly seamlessly over to the performance side, which is, we try to make it as frictionless as possible. We want people to understand that, you know, whatever misconceptions they have about strength coaches and strength and performance, that it's really not what they think. It actually does look like really good PT, and good strength training look like really good PT as well. So, we want to bring down as many barriers to entry as possible, just to get people, living as well as possible. And, for our golfers, playing golf is at as high a level as possible for as long as possible.
With the general population clients, what percentage would you say tend to go from physical therapy over to you guys, at least for maybe, and what does it look like? Is it a few sessions? Is it then, sometimes long-term programming? And how many people actually take advantage of that?
It's growing right now. More, the more I've been here, the more people that we've met and start to kind of see what we do with our client, with the performance side of things. And then, so we try to get them over, or, our therapists have done a really good job. They all buy into what we're doing, and, they will say, okay, so instead of working with the tech, why don't you work with Mitch for about 15 minutes? Here's what we've been working on with them. Mitch is going to show you a few strengthening exercises you can do to help, with whatever we're working on. And then that's how we sort of forge that relationship and try to create that entry point down there.
Very cool. And then as far as I know, because you had a whole stable of professional golfers, high-level golfers that you worked with down in Florida. Are you still keeping in contact and working remotely with them? And then what does it look like in person at the facility in Wisconsin?
Yeah. So I still have a number of my professional athletes that I work with. They're on remote programming, and then we'll FaceTime anywhere from 1 to 2 times a week. And we do almost daily check-ins just to see how everything's going. And then, we've got a number of athletes that are professional athletes in Milwaukee. And if they've come to see us for PT, we're reaching out to them to just say, hey, whatever you need from us, we're happy to provide. So one of our collegiate athletes got drafted by the Dodgers this year. He's still undergoing TJ rehab, and, he's got some strength stuff that he does outside, but, we'll consult, just kind of take a look at his program, say, okay, here's what we would add in. Here's what we would, kind of use the red light, green light, yellow light philosophy of stay away from, proceed with caution, or screen means go. So we'll help them out with that. Just kind of be whatever they need, whenever they need it.
The last time you and I had a chance to talk, which was really just a couple of weeks ago, you were kind of kicking around some different training styles that you were working with some of your golfers. Had a lot to do with, utilizing kettlebells and working on some power, also endurance kind of things, just with a little bit of twist compared to, I think, what we think of traditionally when we think of golf and training and strength. Can you kind of dive into that, and how has that progressed a little bit? What other insights have you come up with?
Yeah. So, when we talked last, one of the things that I've been kind of chewing on for a couple of years, and talking to people who are much smarter than me, is, we talk about golf being an explosive sport, and it is, but it's also an endurance sport. Even if you're riding a car, you're still performing activity for, 4.5 hours, God forbid 5 hours, but, it takes a while. When you swing a golf club, let's say you shoot 75. And so let's say you have 30 putts, not a great putting round. So you still swung a club 45 times. That sounds to me a little bit more like an endurance type of an activity, as opposed to like a one-off activity. So we started looking at some ideas of creating explosive work capacity. So we took some of the ANA, the anaerobic alactic protocols that Pavel Satsuline and Strong First have been putting out. And they've got a number of different resources. So I started taking some of those principles and talked to some other people who actually work with endurance athletes and kind of use kettlebells as their tool, and put together a couple of programs working on those anti-glycolytic training protocols and using that with our golfers to create that explosive, that repeat explosive endurance. And we really like the results. I think there's some nice what the heck effects that come along with that style of training. But in terms of the explosive work capacity, we just did a couple of little RPE things, rate of perceived exertion, and see how they felt towards the end of round versus the beginning of the rounds. And, I wouldn't say there's a huge, like, oh my God, this was incredible, I felt so much better, but there was a noticeable difference as the rounds went on, not necessarily just on Thursday, but how we felt on Saturday, how we felt on Sunday. And I just thought it was different, and it was just a different way of looking at how do we solve this problem.
Yeah. So can you give us an example of what a training session might look like? How long does it last? What does it entail?
There are a number of different protocols that we use. One of them is a push-up and kettlebell swing protocol. And that is, it's called O33B. And the way it works, you hit a stopwatch and you hit start. As you hit start, it's at 0. So you do 5 kettlebell swings as explosively as possible. And then you get to rest until the next 30 seconds. When the stopwatch hits 30, you repeat. You do 5 swings. When the stopwatch hits a minute, you do the same. When the stopwatch hits 1:30, you do the same. Once your kettlebell swings are done, you rest. Just complete rest until the stopwatch hits 3 minutes. At 3 minutes, you repeat the same thing, but you do that with push-ups. So you do 5 push-ups as explosively, as quickly as possible, making sure you still go through a full range of motion. You're not shortening them up to get speed, but you do them explosively. And you do the same thing. At 3 minutes, you do 5, 3:30, you do 5, 4 minutes, you do 5, 4:30, you do 5, and then you rest. So that would be one cycle through. We'll do anywhere from 2 to 3 cycles in a session. 4 at the absolute most. We will never go beyond 4 because you're really going to start running out of juice on your swings or push-ups. It's a lot of explosive volume. And so we'll just go on to do some other things. We'll hit some lateral lunges. We'll do Turkish get-ups. We'll do different row variations. We'll still kind of do some pressing variations. So we'll hit the rest of our workout, but that's our explosive phase. And we'll do that 2 to 3 times per week. It's not an everyday type thing at all. So that would be one protocol. The second protocol, and this is the one that we were working, and we've done that with him. He loves, my guys love doing that, and girls, the ones that do it. The main one that we did to look at longer endurance was every 90 seconds. And every 90 seconds, you would alternate 10 kettlebell swings and 10 push-ups. So again, you hit we usually would do a timer, but because it's 90 seconds, you can do an interval timer, you can do a stopwatch. But so you do 10 kettlebell swings, rest till 90 seconds, do 10 explosive push-ups, same things, explosive as you can, full range of motion, and then you just repeat. So our goal is to get to about an hour. The primary goal is to get to 30 minutes and still stay explosive. We have a number of different stop signs that we'll use. So one is getting any type of a hot spot on your hand, or you feel like your grip's starting to go. That would be one stop sign. Second is just loss in power. If you can't get to 10 explosive swings, or you just notice that you just don't have the same pop, that's your stop sign because we're out of explosive energy. We're done. We're just training something else at that point. Same thing goes for the push-ups if you can't get there. If you can't do 10 push-ups, that's fine. Just do fewer. However many explosive push-ups that you can do, you stick with that number and you resist the temptation to go more. So that would be our another stop sign. And the other is you can't pass the talk test between bouts. So if I do my 10 kettlebell swings and then 90 seconds is up and I'm ready to go, if I'm still kind of huffing and puffing and can't complete a sentence and talk conversationally, You can do it also with complex math, like 3-digit addition. You're done because you're not recovering within that bout. So we're just done. We move on. We go do some other strength stuff.
And if you're doing that for 30 minutes to an hour, that's going to be, especially if you get up to an hour, that's going to be your whole session for that day, most likely.
Yeah. We'll do some movement, prep, some calisthenics, anything to help, just with a general warm up. We'll do some sets of swings to warm up. We'll do some sets of push-ups to warm up. And then, once we feel like we're good to go, we go. Obviously we don't start at an hour. I think our first couple sessions, we started, I think we got to like 24, 25 minutes. It's like, I could go, but I feel like I'm starting to slow down a little bit. I'm like, all right, cool. Great feedback. Let's move on. We got another one of these this week. So, we'll always leave a little bit in the tank. And we just move on. And then I think by the time, after a couple of weeks, we got up to, I think 40 minutes.
And is that, so if you're doing that once or twice, is it twice a week maybe? And then how many other training sessions, and this is with one of your pro golfers, right?
Yeah, usually with my professional golfers, I've got a couple of people that do 5 days, but those days vary greatly. For most PGA guys and LPGA girls, we'll probably do 3 days to 4 days. Give them a day or two off in between. We'll still have some active recovery stuff to do. But usually 3 or 4 is the norm.
And if this was somebody that's a little bit more, your weekend warrior golfer, somebody that's more trying to win their club championship or just play better this coming year, but they want to make sure that they're doing a little bit more than the average Joe. How are you breaking that up for somebody like that? Are you also encouraging them to do 4 or 5 days a week and just kind of piece it out differently? I think it's always helpful to kind of see
everybody,
what that looks like.
Yeah, everybody that I sit down with, they ask me how many times a week should I do this? And I don't know. How many times do you want to do it? Like, well, what do you recommend? What's the best? Like, I really don't know. Like, I feel my best when I do stuff 6 days a week. But I know that's not practical for everybody. So, I would say no less than 2 for most people, kids, life, if you can get 4 in, great. If we shoot for 4, we get 3, I'd say that's perfect. As long as we're doing something and you do something explosive like that, 3 days, 3 out of 7 days, I think you're probably doing fine.
Awesome. When I think of you and your training and your knowledge, I just immediately think kettlebells. You're one of the first guys that I've known that I would consider, like an expert coach in utilizing the kettlebells as a tool for so many different athletes, different ways of training your body for explosiveness and strength and power. What is it about kettlebells that you love and what's so unique about them that you've used that as, I think, of maybe one of your primary tools when you're working with your athletes?
Yeah, it probably is. Or at least it just becomes that. One, it's really easy to sequester myself and a client into one small space, because we have everything in front of us from an 8 kilo to a 48 kilo bell. So that's 17 pounds to 106. There's something for everybody within that range. And you can, even with, if you just take a good middling size bell, so like a 12 kilo or a 16 kilo, which is 26 to 36 pounds, you can get in a full workout for somebody or a full training session with just that one bell, and you can hit everything. You can get loaded mobility, you can get strength, you can get power, you can get everything that you need in conditioning. You can get everything you need with one bell. And I think the versatility of it, it is something that draws me to that, because we can answer a lot of questions with that one tool, and we don't have to go searching around for things. And some of the feedback I get from some of my clients when we write a more varied program with more pieces of equipment is, well, I can't do this at this gym because as soon as I leave the bench gets taken, or as soon as I leave this pulling machine, it's gone as soon as I turn my back. So, when we use a kettlebell, we don't necessarily have to deal with those types of issues. We can just grab a mat, grab a bell, and get to work. And then the second thing is just the nature of the bell. It's a gym with a handle. So, we can do a lot of things with that one tool. And when that tool is used appropriately, we get really good results.
I would say that when most individuals think about a kettlebell, they think of kettlebell swings, maybe a couple, there's a couple exercises, but obviously there's a whole repertoire that you use. What would you say are some of the staples that you have in, almost every program that you devise, whether that be a young junior golfer all the way up to maybe even a senior golfer?
Man, there's so many. Like, you just started flooding my brain with things. I would probably say our typical ones that get into everybody's program are some type of lateral lunge, whether it's a low hold, a goblet hold, or a single arm rack. Goblet squats are a staple. Single leg deadlifts, whether it's a staggered stance or a true single leg deadlift. I think for most of my young, I wouldn't say young. I think everybody needs shoulder stability. So we do a ton of bottoms up pressing for shoulder strength, shoulder stability, overhead position. Obviously kettlebell swings. We'll do kettlebell cleans. We'll do a lot of marching and different types of carries with the kettlebell. So we can get a lot of high notes and really just sort of focus on the big six of push, pull, hinge, squat, carry, some type of midsection work, and get everybody in.
Yeah, I've been watching your Instagram a lot lately, and you've been talking a lot about utilizing them for core exercises and non-traditional, looking core exercises, as most people think of your traditional sit up or even planks, things like that. But being able to utilize something like this in a whole different way to really help stabilize the midsection.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to midsection work, I think we tend to overcomplicate things quite a bit. We look at, can we resist rotation? Can we resist lateral flexion? But can we control what we're doing as well? So can we control rotation? Can we control lateral flexion? And I think that's really what we try to focus on. Isn't just the creation, but being able to control what we have. I think with golfers, I tend to take the WD-40 duct tape type of an idea when it comes to midsection of, is it moving and should it? If it's not moving and it should, we use WD-40. If it's moving and it shouldn't, we use duct tape. So we kind of look at the midsection as that, are we moving too much? Because we talk a lot about golf mobility and golf movement, but I've seen more golfers get hurt because they can't control the movement that they have. And I think getting people to understand that we need to work more controlling our movement than we do just trying to get more. And once that happens, I think there are a lot of good things that follow that.
I mean, I think that's a huge point that is very much overlooked by especially the general population or people that are looking at exercises online or searching for themselves. They constantly think, at least this has been my experience, they come in and I need more rotation. I need to be more flexible. I need to move this further. I need to do more of this. But to your point, most people can't control the movement that they do have. And I believe that if they had control over certain parts of the body, the part that they want to move actually would likely move better. And I've seen you even utilize the kettlebells and different strength tools to help facilitate that mobility, which is kind of counterintuitive. People don't think strength and mobility as being, working together in the same session.
Yeah, I can't remember who said it, and it sort of resonated with me a while back. I think a lot of people have said it, but people that we follow, like Mike Boyle, Greg Cook, Lee Burton, Charlie Weingroff said it. Putting a weight in somebody's hand oftentimes will clean up their squat. And so is that weight, is it a resistance or is it an assistance tool? You see somebody who can't squat past 90 and you wonder, okay, well, we got, do we work on ankle mobility? Do we work on hip mobility? Do we work on core stability? Where you put a weight in their hand and all of a sudden their squat cleans right up and it looks great. You're like, wait a minute, we didn't work on any of these things. Maybe they just needed to figure out how to squat, how to load it, and it'll just get better immediately. And it doesn't mean that we're just going to throw, 2 wheels on somebody's back on a bar and their squat's going to look great. But I think it's a good starting point for them where maybe we just need to load them a little bit more, and whatever ails them is probably going to get cleaned up.
Do you have any set parameters on any of the lifts, say like a goblet squat or something, of what you'd like somebody to be able to handle and get in through a full range of motion? Do you set those kind of standards, or is it case by case basis?
Well, I think we always have some what we would call prerequisites. I just by the nature of what we do, I don't do a ton of back squatting. I think you can get a lot of really good things just from a really heavy goblet squat, and then you just build them up from there. If you really want a good challenge, pick up the beast, 106 kilo bell, get it up here, and then goblet squat it. You tell me, is that a good is that a good standard? Is that a good prerequisite? I would probably say yes. So I think that's one. I think for deadlifts, if somebody's not at a 1X body weight deadlift, I think getting them there is a good start, and then getting them to either 1.5 or 2 times body weight. But I think the idea of chasing that number can go sideways, as opposed to let's just keep building, we'll keep progressing, we'll keep loading, and let's see where we are. So that's something that we're looking at, competency and load, and what does it look like when with how much weight you can handle. So, is there such a thing as too strong? No. Is there such a thing as not strong enough? I would probably tend to say yes. Do those have parameters? Yes. Does that come with, it depends? Yeah, it always does.
You said is there anything such as being too strong? What do you think about some of the serious heavy lifting deadlifts? We've had Dr. Stuart McGill on the show. We've had some people on the show that love going as heavy as possible with a deadlift. Dr. McGill says that, it's ideally not great for the spine, builds a lot of rigidity if you're going too heavy. Where do you see that risk versus reward kind of come into play when it comes to something like a heavy deadlift? Or I know you mentioned that you don't do much back squatting, so maybe deadlift is probably the one to look at.
Yeah, I mean, one, we'll look a little bit at some anthropometrics, like what does somebody look like? What's their femur length? What's their tibial length? What's their spine length? What are the ratios? That'll dictate a little bit about, what their deadlift looks like. But yeah, I think a lot of it is how do you handle the load? How much weight are we putting on you? If you can pull 4 wheels off the ground pretty easily, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. If you're really struggling to get 4 wheels off the ground, then, maybe we need to back off a little bit. I tend to take a little bit of, let's look at percentages, and, what does 80% look like? What does 90% look like? Where do we need to live? And we can live at some fairly reasonable weight so that the technical proficiency is there. And then we can challenge you at lower reps where we don't chase 1 RMs. I don't, it's a nice number, but I want a technical RM. What's your 3 TRM? What's your 5 TRM? What's your 10 TRM look like? And then let's work off of those numbers, because everyone wants a one rep max just to, puff their chest out and see, but I don't think there's a lot of carryover. How well can you do something X amount of times as opposed to how poorly can you do it once? Because nobody's PR is ever pretty.
No.
Like everybody who I've ever seen, get their max back squat, front squat, deadlift, they've all looked like garbage. I want to see how well you can pull something off the ground a certain amount of times, and then let's talk, because that becomes work capacity.
Yeah, and that's really where I live too. Is I don't really care how much you can lift one time. It's, what can you do repetitively? What can you control? What can you move with speed when you need to move with speed, and still do it well, right? So when you're out on the golf course, you can handle yourself, and so we're not hurting you, so you can't get out to the golf course first and foremost.
Yeah, I mean, the 45-year-old doesn't care what his 1RM is. You 1RM a deadlift or anything for a 45-year-old, they're gonna be feeling it for days. They're not gonna go want to swing a golf club. They're going to lay on the couch. Days that I decide that I'm gonna, or programmed a heavier intensity day, like I feel it for a couple of days. I love it. Like I love that feeling, but not everybody does. And I can't put that on them. Like I think we can create adaptations in a way where we're meeting our client where they are, so that they feel like they've gotten some work done, but it doesn't feel like somebody blew a foghorn into their CNS. I think that's a little counterintuitive. Most people who we would both see, when they associate deadlift, they associate 400 pounds and somebody yelling and spitting and their face turns red, and eventually they're going to blow out their back. And I'm like, no, let's teach you how to deadlift with really good form. Pick something heavy up off the ground, and your heavy is not my heavy, but let's get you picking something comfortably off the ground, and let's build from there. Because most people are stronger than they think. We just got to get them to understand that it's safe, and here's the reasons behind it, and we just go.
Yeah, I think that there's many times where we underestimate ourselves in the capacity of what we can do in the gym. We get to a certain age, us guys that are in our 40s and then into the 50s, and kind of assume that we should be kind of starting to back off and not pushing ourselves quite as hard. But I think that when you do actually get in there and put yourself to the test, you realize, oh, wait, I'm actually a little stronger and I've got a little more in the tank than I thought I did, which then is going to play out into what you're doing when you go out on the golf course or whatever physical endeavor that you're setting out for.
Yeah, I think as we get north of 40, what I've found even for myself is, I can still go pretty heavy. I have to pay attention to, I probably pay more attention to volume than intensity. I still like lifting heavy. I just have to pay attention to volume in my sessions, or I'll know that I got a lot of weight moved next day. And I'll make some adjustments in that training for the next day. If I know that I've got a lot of work that I really want to play around with, I probably dial back a little bit in session day to day. But there are just some days where, let's put some tonnage on this old rig and let's get it moving. And I think the more that we load, the more we can create resiliency. And I think that for the over 40 crowd, creating better day-to-day resiliency is probably one of the best things that we can work on.
Let's take a second to thank our sponsors over at First Form. And this week I want to highlight their Formula One post-workout protein shake. I use this thing pretty much every day after my workouts because, let's face it, being here in the gym, working all the time with clients, putting on a podcast, it can sometimes be tough to get my protein in on a regular basis. And so I know that with the post-workout shake, the Formula One, first of all, it's fast acting. So right after your workout is a great time to get your protein in to help build your muscles, get yourself stronger, and repair what you've done in the gym. But also, if you don't know if you're gonna be able to get your protein in your regular meals, it's just a great way to make sure that you're supplementing and hitting those marks. So be sure to go over to firstform.com/18strong to get your First Form Formula One protein shake. And everyone that enters through that link is going to be put into a drawing every single month for free First Form products. So again, go over to firstform.com/18strong. What about for that crowd in regards to kind of what we were talking about before, the explosiveness and building that, not just, obviously as we hit age 40, I think we tend to see that, year by year by year, our speeds tend to decrease from a golf standpoint. but doesn't have to necessarily. What are some of the things that you would recommend golfers look into doing or incorporating that help to build some more of that explosiveness, whether that be certain exercises or just certain techniques or different ways that you found to really help to build that up?
Don't stop training explosively in the first place. I think that's key. I think most people kind of slow down a little bit. Like they'll lift weights, maybe not do as many med ball slams, or if they're doing med ball slams, it's just not with the intent that we would need. I mean, you've got to come out of your shoes, max effort, break the ball, put a hole in the floor, anything possible that's as explosive as possible. I think we need to do that more often and not conflate the idea of strength and conditioning. And there's a reason there's an and in between, but we also have to understand that there's an or as well. When we do something explosive, do it explosively and then just rest. Just have some downtime. Let's not rush from one thing to the next to try to make it strength and conditioning all at once. Explosive work has its time, it's got its place, and let's do that at the beginning of the workout, but do it as explosively as possible when you're fresh. And then let's move on to our strength stuff and give it its due when you're doing it.
Something that I've heard you talk about is also that's really important when you're trying to build speed is building your brakes as well and
Mm-hmm.
learning how to handle that speed. What do you mean by that?
Working on deceleration, working, if you work on mobility, like mobility is its own session. If you really want to create long lasting range of motion changes, there's got to be some intent there as well, rather than, just doing some quadruped T-spine rotations, thinking that all of a sudden this is going to help me rotate more. It's like, no, I mean, you're just sort of warming up through a range, but creating changes in that end range is its own mobility session. But then we have to go, once we get that new range, we actually have to learn how to access it, how to operate within that range. So we have a little bit more intent on what we're doing when we build brakes, kind of like to loop this back around, kind of like what we were talking about earlier with core, not just using our midsection to create rotation, but to control the rotation so that, when are most people getting hurt? It's not in their backswing, it's in the follow through. Why? Because we have to do a better job of controlling how far and how fast we go. So, a lot of the squats, lunges, things like that, those are going to build bigger brakes for us so that we have the ability to control how fast we're going.
What are techniques to be able to do that? Like, what are some of the things that you incorporate into, aside from just your typical squat, lunge, the typical patterns?
I think isometrics are awesome. I don't know too many of my clients that are like, man, great, we're doing iso holds today. They're difficult, they're challenging, but they provide a lot of big bang for your buck. There's a lot of time under tension. There's a lot of good hormonal responses that come from isos. There's a lot of isometric that we use from our PT side here. So I think those are good. Sometimes it's just picking something heavy up and learning how to control that. I'd say those are probably the two easiest, lowest hanging pieces of free.
When you're looking at mobility on a lot of your golfers, where do you find some of the bigger issues? As far as, we talked about how everybody comes in and says they think they need mobility, they think they need more flexibility, but sometimes there are legitimate cases of areas that are tight or stiff or uncontrolled and not able to move. What are a couple of the ones that, I think we tend to think of the T-spine, we think of the hips. Are there any other ones that you really see that we don't really pay attention to?
Well, I think the two biggest things for me are feet. What are your feet doing? And how many people are barefoot? How many people are walking around, letting their toes move, letting their feet move? That's one. I would say the second one is breathing. We just get a lot of people who breathe really, really inefficiently. Everything's up into the shoulders and they breathe here instead of the rib cage being able to expand. I would say that the better you breathe, the better you move and the better your posture. And, when it comes to golf, your golf swing is going to be a reflection of your movement patterns, and your movement patterns are going to be a reflection of how well your rib cage moves, how well you breathe, and what your posture looks like. So I think there's some really good benefits to just cleaning those things up at the beginning and saying, okay, so let's, we've addressed those things. Now let's start laying a few other things on from there.
I've also seen you highlight recently just even the lat length in a lot of the golfers. And you mentioned before that you do a lot of overhead stuff. You think it's very important for people to work on their overheads. How do the lats and what does tightness there, how does that impact a golfer, and what does that look like in their golf swing? And what does it look like when you then help them improve that?
So one of the things for everyone that's familiar with the TPI golf screen, being able to control pelvic tilt and what your posture looks like it's set up, where the lats attach through the lower back and the fascia of the lower back. A tight, short lat is going to give you that S posture. It's going to pop your chest forward. It's going to bring the lower back into that anterior tilt. Everything along this side, along the lats, is going to be tight. That's also going to affect being able to reach across our body. So that's our lead arm, being able to come across into the backswing. That's the trail arm, being able to reach, stay long, keeping straight arms through impact. So being able to have a back that moves better, having better lat length. We do test the overhead flexion position to check lat length as well. That becomes really, really important for us. We know we know what swing faults are created through poor lat length and poor setup posture. So I think it's an underappreciated standpoint. It's set up, and that's also one of the reasons why we address breathing so much as well, as we can get a much more neutral pelvis position, putting somebody in supine on their back, getting a more neutral pelvis, and then getting them to breathe efficiently from there. And that can clean up a lot of issues.
Yeah, I've really come to appreciate over the last couple of years, and through watching people like you and a lot of the other coaches that we've had on the show, the importance of working on breath work for myself and with clients, and how that can impact even neurologically what you're doing. Your breath has so much to do with the way that your body responds, how well you're going to get into that motion, and how well you're going to utilize that mobility. And it's really kind of opened my eyes to how much it impacts your posture and ultimately impacts your performance day to day.
Yeah, there's a lot of really, really good, again, what the heck benefits of proper breathing mechanics, just from oxygenation in the blood, how well we move, being able to toggle between sympathetic and parasympathetic. Just Americans by nature are stuck in sympathetic overdrive. We don't know how to toggle down. We can't get into parasympathetic when we need to. We can't calm down. We have a harder time sleeping. Like, there's just this cascading effect of not being able to control those two areas of our nervous system. And so that's one. Obviously sleeping is a huge part of recovery. And, even just from breathing, you can learn how to brace better. And when you learn how to brace, that's going to affect how we control our body at impact. If you have a really good ability to brace, absorbing a punch, you'll be able to strike the ball with much less deceleration and inertia when you contact the ball, as if for somebody that doesn't know how to brace. So I think there's a lot of really cool crossover things between breathing mechanics and golf. I learned so much just from reading the book Breath by James Nestor. There are a lot of really, really cool things in there that I think everybody can benefit from.
Yeah, that book it was a much better read than I anticipated too. I was thinking it was going to be like this very clinical kind of sciencey based book, but he's actually a writer. I think he was from the New York Times or whatever, and tells it like a story. So I've recommended that to some people and they're like, really, I'm going to read a book on breathing. And I'm like, no, trust me, this is actually a good read. There's stories in there that you'll appreciate, but that book completely opened my eyes as well. This kind of takes me back to our conversation a couple weeks ago when we were talking about, the training that you were doing with the explosive capacity stuff, but then we were talking about rucking. Are you still having some of your guys rucking, and do you ruck? And for those that don't know what rucking is, explain that to the folks.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's pretty simple. You just load a backpack up or load a bag up, throw it on your back, go for a walk, go as far as you can, as comfortably as you can. Again, you don't have to, you load 80 pounds up into a pack all at once. Even if you start with 10, 15 pounds and just go for a walk, go for a walk through nature. If you have access to hiking trails or, just go for walks through your neighborhood. There are a lot of good benefits to that for back strength, core stability. One of the things I talk about in the book Breath that I started doing and that I'll have my golfers do is nasal breathing only while rucking. So you can take just a piece of medical tape and put it across your mouth, or just consciously put your tongue against the roof of your mouth and just breathe through your nose for the entire walk. It'll kind of self-regulate how quickly you go. But you'll get a lot of again, I really like what the heck benefits, which are ancillary benefits, not the main one, but you just kind of go, I was focusing on this and this got better. What the heck? I wasn't even trying to do that. But I've had them do that for a number of reasons. One, like I said, getting out of that sympathetic overdrive back into parasympathetic, learning how to breathe more expansively through the rib cage because better rib cage movement are better golfers. And then just loading up work capacity. So yeah, I try to get my golfers, my athletes to do that once a week. I try to do that a couple of times a week whenever I can, just to get outside.
I've come to love it as well, but I hadn't thought about the nasal breathing intentionally until talking to you, and so I've really made it a point to do that on my walks, and just trying to feel the expansion of the abdominals and even the expansion into the lower back and into the side, and it really does make a big difference. Plus, like you said, the what the heck benefits of focusing on your breathing makes you focus less on all the other stuff going on in your head. It's almost like a walking meditation, which has been really, really special, I think. And I think that so many people can benefit from just going for a long walk, maybe throw a little weight on their back, as opposed to doing some of the crazy cardio stuff that we tend to lean on, where we're increasing the stress on our body while trying to get that movement and activity. Going out and doing something along these lines where you're actually almost de-stressing a little bit while getting that activity can be massively beneficial. Right.
And most people, when they're on a piece of cardio equipment, they're adding more stress. They're not actually using it to de-stress or get into a better state. So, if it's an opportunity for them to toggle down, I'm all for it.
What have your pro golfers thought of it? Did they look at you a little crazy when you first suggested?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah. It's like, what, you just want me to, we start off with some of it's like an active recovery day where, we do a lot of calisthenics, a lot of ground-based movement, for about 15 minutes. And then it's like load up a backpack, throw 20 pounds in there and just go for a walk, start out at a half hour. And then let's build up from there. And that's all you want me to do? That's all we're doing today.
And
just go for a walk.
Now you're actually in a landscape where you have some hills as opposed to Florida where you're walking through parking lots.
It's not all flat.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a lot more hills here in Wisconsin.
Awesome.
It's a little colder here too. It's 40 and rainy here. Absolutely my favorite weather.
You know what? There's something to be said to loading up a pack, getting your stocking cap on, bundling up a little bit. You just feel a little bit more like a man when you go out in the cold and you're doing it too.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, that's why we have the beer, to keep the face warm.
That's right. And
it gets to blend into snowstorms now.
All right, my friend, I know that we asked you these questions or versions of these questions, but this was, how many years ago? So we're going to re-ask. So just to see if any answers have changed. So first of all, Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore?
Oh, Caddyshack. It's not even a question.
All right, if you could pick a walk-up song to the first tee box, what's your walk-up song these days?
Well, it should be and always will be Hell's Bells by AC/DC.
That takes me back to pledging for my fraternity. So it kind of makes the hairs on my arm stand up a little bit, but great call. Great call.
It's what, when Trevor Hoffman would come out, you just know when you have that walk-up song or that walkout song, that guy has his song and it's about to be on. For me, it's just Hell's Bells.
Awesome. All right. Is there a book that you like to recommend to people that's had a big impact on your life? And that could be fitness, golf, life, whatever it is that you like to recommend.
Two books. One of them, one of my clients down in South Florida wrote. It's called The Power of Being Yourself by Joe Plumeri, Plumeri. It is an outstanding book. Joe's probably the most successful person that nobody's ever heard of, except a lot of people have heard of him. He's got a lot of commencement speeches on YouTube that are just, he's awesome. Joe goes hard. 80 years old. He's up. We train from 6 to 6:45 every morning. He's just an animal. In fact, I think, I don't know if he listens to the podcast. He should. Andrew Riley works with him at Integrative Exercise in the Hamptons. Andrew works with him in the summers, and I would work with Joe in the winters. Joe's just, working with him is like getting your MBA every morning. He's just an incredible human with an incredible story. So that book is an awesome listen and read. So I think everyone should get that. The second is Burn the Boats by Matt Higgins, who the book just came out within the last year. So I think for everyone that gets stuck into the what if, or if I could only do this, or if I could only do that, you just have to take the step. That's why we moved to Wisconsin. We left everything that we had in Florida, which was a lot. We left it all behind. You can't be successful if you leave yourself out. You just got to burn the boats and go. There's no plan B. There's no turning back. No one's come to help you. You just have to go. And there's no failure because it's not an option. I think those two books are probably the most impactful ones that I've read. And they're probably more resources than they are books.
Fantastic. I'm putting both of those on my to read list ASAP, and we'll link those up in the show notes as well, just so everybody listening can go there. All right. If you could go play a round of golf with anyone in the world, past, present, celebrities, famous people, whoever, who are you taking to play?
This is a joke answer because I like a little chaos in my life, but Brooks, Bryson, and Phil. But in all honesty, past, present, future, the only people I want to golf with are my dad, my two grandfathers that have passed. My dad was one of the reasons why we moved back up. I wanted to get the kids closer to him. But family's everything to me. I was really close with both my grandfathers, and I would give everything to be able to have another 4 or 5 hours of life with them. So dad and grandfathers.
Fantastic. All right. If we could fuel up the 18 Strong jet and we're taking you anywhere you want to go, you could take grandpa's and dad. You guys can go play any course in the world. Where are you going to go if we said, Mitch, we're leaving tomorrow? Where are we heading?
Shooting Star. Go see my boy, Ben Pollan up there in Jackson Hole.
Shooting Star.
I love mountains. I love mountains and I love golf. And I don't think there's any better place to do that. So I'm going to give Ben and Shooting Star a little shout out.
Sweet. I've never heard of it. I'm looking that up immediately. Have you been there already?
I've not. I just get to see Ben's pictures on Instagram and then shoot him messages.
Lovely. All right. Well, we're going to have to go follow Ben, which leads into our next question. Is there a social media account that you think the 18 Strong crew should go follow? One that you've been digging lately, whether that's golf or fitness or makes you laugh, whatever it is. Who should we go look at?
A friend of the show, Allie Gilbert. I think Allie does an amazing job of making men's health fun, relatable, accessible, and just, bare bones, no holds barred. Like, she tells it like it is. I think more men need that. We shouldn't be afraid of men's health issues. And Allie just does an amazing job of making it bite-sized and explainable and understandable for most men. So I think that's a really good one. And then just something that I'm really passionate about is following Regenerative Farmers of America. I'm really big on regenerative farming practices. I think we have a huge problem in our country with corporate farms. And we need to support our local farmers, wherever we are. There's farmers in every city and every state. I think we need to do a better job of supporting them, buying from local farm stands, buying your meat from the farmer that slaughters their own cattle. I think it'll do an enormous job helping our environment, helping our societies. We have we don't have nutrient-dense food anymore. I think we need to do a better job in that realm of life. And it's something that my wife and I are really passionate about. So go check out Regenerative Farmers of America and support them, buy your meat from them, not your big grocery stores, and go to your local farm stands whenever you can.
Awesome. I love it. I have an uncle who is up in northern Missouri, and he's running his father-in-law's cattle ranch, and we get most of our meat from up there. And so couldn't second that more. Awesome.
It tastes better. It's
does.
Better for you. And if I can help a farmer live a little bit better life rather than a CEO, I'm totally cool with that.
Man, and people don't realize how tough farming is, especially now. The small farmer, and by small, couple thousand acres is small, right? I mean, it's unbelievable. So very cool. All right, last thing.
Yep.
What's the best piece of golf advice that you've ever received?
Be a goldfish. We all live for that one shot, just that one ball that we just absolutely smoke, and it just feels pure off the face. And most people say, why can't I do that every time? Be a goldfish. Just enjoy it. Don't worry about the shanks. Don't worry about the one you hit in the rough. Don't worry about the one you lost in the water. Just be a goldfish. Just go hit the next ball. Just go make that next shot a little bit better.
Great advice. Mitch, my friend, where can everybody go follow you and see everything that you're doing? You're doing a great job putting a lot more out on social media. We've been reposting a little bit. We got to get better reposting some of your stuff. But where can they go find you?
At Mitch Sadowsky, MITCH, SADOWSKY, and at Aretas Performance, ARETAS Performance, on the IG for both.
Awesome. Buddy, can't thank you enough for coming on, sharing your wisdom with us, and hopefully we'll be seeing a lot more of you on the 18 Strong page, and I think we'll have a few projects put together in the near future that people can look forward to.
For sure. Thanks for having me on again. This is awesome. Always love our chats on and off the ether, and always look forward to it, man. Appreciate it.
Hopefully soon it'll be in person, maybe at another World Golf Fitness Summit.
I know. We're driving distance now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, dude. Talk soon. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate you.
Thanks for listening to the 18 Strong podcast. And if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to share with your friends. And of course, go follow us over on Instagram at 18 Strong. Thanks again. We'll catch up with you next week. Train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.